Immortal Unchained is the unholy Frankenstein combination of Dark Souls and Borderlands. And I regret to inform you that if that actually sounds cool to you, you should temper your expectations, because these games do not play well with each other. As always, I'm Alex, and this is First 5, where I ask if games are worth your time, not your money. I played a game for 5 hours, and I'm going to tell you if those were 5 hours well spent. And today we're saving the galaxy from the undead in Immortal Unchained. Stories of morally ambiguous prisoners with cryptic backstories seem to be all the rage lately. You're a bad enough dude to be the sole prisoner of this crazy maximum security prison, but apparently you're the lesser of two evils, as you've been recruited to save the Galactic Nine Realms. Wait, is this another game secretly cribbing off of Norse mythology? Is this mystical monolith that connects all the worlds just Cyber Yggdrasil? Are the Primes just the Aesir? This boss is a housecarl. That is extremely suspicious. I'm getting off course. So, you get recruited to stave off the rise of these weird rifle-toting cyber skeleton things that are tearing through the galaxy and have a penchant for green. So it's your job to break out of prison, get this big monolith thing working again, and generally go kick some ass. That's pretty much the entire plot through the first 5 hours and 3 zones. You find a few random NPCs along the way, but they're a little melodramatic.
Wander and wander to no avail. They are lost to me. Evil itself could not bear this toil.
And hopefully not important. Sorry, Doran. Only so much I can do when we get jumped by zombie ninjas and I get stun-locked in a corner. Now, the important thing to note up front is that Immortal Unchained is a decent game. Regular Souls-like standbys like the leveling system are taken whole and unchanged, and they work about the same here as anywhere else. And, in fact, the farther I get into the game, the more I'm enjoying it. But most of what Immortal Unchained tries to do differently from its peers doesn't quite work. And most of that enjoyment I've been experiencing feels like it's been in spite of the game rather than because of it. And it also takes a while for the game to start gelling cohesively. Part of that is because its systems work against each other instead of in harmony, and part of that is because eventually you get powerful enough that you don't have to care. I have to explain the former before I can get to the latter, so let's dive into the meat of what makes Immortal Unchained unique, and talk about combat and incentivization. So unlike most Souls-likes, Immortal Unchained makes guns your primary weapon. But the devs clearly realize just how boring sitting back and popping enemies in the face from relative safety is, so they've heavily incentivized getting up close and personal to compensate for that. Enemies are all big old bullet sponges that take multiple clips of ammo to chew through, but every enemy, be it the lowliest husk or a full-on boss, has a big glowing weak point on their back. Which means if you want to do some real DPS, you're gonna have to get behind them, which usually means getting up close, dodging an attack, and then punishing your opponent full auto in the back. There's just one problem. Enemies will still track you mid-swing, so you can regularly experience a phenomenon where you'll dodge roll behind them only for them to whirl around and smack you anyway. I know that sounds like a nitpick, but it's a very fundamental flaw in a melee-centric combat system, guns be damned. And because of how all of this works, you have two ways of doing combat in this game. You can do the Borderlands style hide around the corner and pop out to chew through multiple clips of ammo, shooting bullet sponge enemies from the front, or you can embrace the Souls-like combat Immortal Unchained clearly wants you to pursue, get up close, and try to dodge and counterattack your opponents. But no matter which you choose, Immortal Unchained's design will punish you. If you sit back and play the bullet sponge game, you'll rapidly run into ammo scarcity problems, to say nothing of how boring this is against the more Dark Soulsian encounter design of only 2 or 3 dangerous but highly cumbersome enemies at a time. But if you play the game like a Souls-like, every enemy's attack will track you even after they've wound up, which goes completely against the more measured and deliberate rhythm Souls-like games are all about. And in the case of smaller, faster enemies, makes going for the weak point an exercise in futility when they turn around faster than you can recover from a dodge roll. You're kind of screwed no matter which way you go. Sitting back is a boring battle of attrition you don't have the bullets to win, and fighting up close leads to unpredictable melee combat that will discourage you from getting within a mile of anything with claws. And then everything changed when I was blessed with a pair of uncommon drops through a Borderlands-esque random loot drop system, and Immortal Unchained suddenly became an almost entirely different game. ammo scarcity was a massive issue for the first 3 hours I played. But once I randomly got better guns that did double the damage, well, I obviously needed half the bullets, and my ammo problems solved themselves. And with my ammo issues solved, I didn't have to fixate so much on my opponent's backs anymore. And this is what I meant by enjoying myself in spite of the game. Because I learned to stop worrying and love Immortal Unchained by ignoring the sundry carrots its mechanical systems dangled in front of me, and just started full autoing everything in the face with my broken SMG like the filthy casual I am. Usually I'd probably consider it a problem if I was allowed to just ignore most of a game's mechanics. But considering the systems Immortal Unchained wanted me to engage with, this was a godsend. And you know what? Maybe all of my woes can be summed up as poor balancing issues. But Immortal Unchained works itself into a corner here. Either its balance frequently swings from difficult to easy at the whims of a random loot drop system, or the aforementioned damned if you do, damned if you don't combat system I described earlier was working as intended, which is to say, not working very well at all. Either way, trying to bolt Borderlands onto a Dark Souls skeleton wasn't an overly successful experiment, and all it accomplished was producing one of the most miserable opening hours I have experienced in a game all year, followed by mostly decent gameplay that begrudgingly dragged me back tooth and nail to a position where I don't want to set the game on fire anymore. Which brings me to my ultimate verdict. In 5 hours, I've gotten through the first 3 levels, and it wasn't until that final hour that I really felt myself starting to gel with the game. I'm willing to chalk that down to just a horrible introduction, and give the game the benefit of the doubt when I say that the last hour was probably more indicative of how the rest of the game will go. But 5 hours just to get into a game is a steep ask by my busy standards, and honestly, even after those 5 hours, I'd rather just go finish my game of Bloodborne. I mean, no offense to Immortal Unchained, it's a reasonably fine game, but there's just better out there. Ultimately, by the time Immortal Unchained had started to grab me, I was already moving on. And unless you've burned through all your other Souls-like options, you might want to as well. But, hey, you can make Cyber Darth Maul, so that's pretty cool. Hey, do you believe that your time is the most valuable thing you have? Do you want to find more games that respect that time? This channel is all about finding games that don't pad themselves and can be completed in a reasonable amount of time. So if that sounds appealing to you, then consider hitting that subscribe button. But regardless, thanks for watching this far, and I'll see you all next week.